Alrighty, Riley Bennett here with fellow Amazon PPC and SEO expert Ryan Logan. And in this video, we're going to walk through the edit product section in Seller Central. Just go through all of the tabs in here, all of the attributes, and just explain what they are and what you need to know in a high level sense. So when you are adding your product, you kind of understand the gist of it and the kind of basic best practices and strategies. Okay, so you will find this inside of your Seller Central. Of course, you click on Edit Product and you find yourself here. So Ryan, let's have you kick it off. So seller SKU, what is this?
Yeah, so that is just the SKU or the product identifier that you actually have internally. So this is not the ASIN, right? And it's not what's called the FNSKU, which if you're unfamiliar with Amazon, that's a fulfillment
Yeah.
stock keeping unit, right? So this is just for your own internal purposes. A lot of people will actually have, if they have like a big catalog off Amazon on their own website, they'll actually take the SKU that they have on their website for organization and they'll insert it here. This is another good place for if you have like an FBA and an FBM, or fulfilled by merchant and a fulfilled by Amazon SKU for the same ASIN. So the ASIN is Amazon's identifier. And so you can actually have the same basic SKU with two different shipping or fulfillment types. And so you can have a SKU, the SKU sticky, so SWMB as this one is that SKU. And you can have it as a dash FBA, and then another one that's same SKU
Yep.
beginning with a dash FBM, right? So you can keep the two different fulfillment methods organized,
Yep.
okay? When you create this SKU, it's pretty stuck. There are ways, of course, that you can go through and change it, but in general, it's best to just get this done right the first time, because changing SKUs around, at least as of to date, is pretty frustrating. It can happen, but it takes a
Yep.
lot more work to change it than it is to just get it right the first time.
Yep. So have
All
a
right.
format. I created this SWMB. It's short nickname for the product, Sticky Wallet Mount Black. And then you can have dash. I would recommend doing dash FBA and dash FBM. If you already have it on your website, paste that in, and then dash FBA dash FBM. A SKU refers to an offer. Okay, let's so you create this one yourself when you add the product. Okay, product tax code.
Right.
What is this? Isn't this automatically you just choose the category and then Amazon automatically
Yep.
puts in this? Yeah.
Yes, there are a few exceptions to that, as always, because sometimes in some subcategories there are other codes. But yes, in general, Amazon chooses it for you. You don't have to worry about that.
So your price, sale price, and then list price. So my understanding this is so your price is the quote unquote regular price. Sale price is what the customer will actually pay. And then list price is that's kind of like MSRP. Is that basically right, Ryan?
Um, the list price.
So your price shows on the listing, and that will be theoretically strike through. And
Yes.
then sale price will be what the customer pays. List price is
Mhm.
the suggested retail price that's provided. So this is in
Yeah.
years past, it used to say MSRP price.
Correct. Yes.
So sale price is the lowest. Your price is the quote unquote regular price. This just put as a higher price. If there actually is an MSRP, then put that, but put that just as some higher price. Sale start date. So this is when this sale price actually becomes live. If you're doing, if you want to do it, or the sale date where the sale price actually goes away after a period of time. As you can see here, we always keep the sale price on, so we just have the sale end date um, years, 3 years in the future.
Mhm.
Okay, so item condition, you want to have this new, of course. Condition note, you can leave that blank if you're new. Max order quantity, you may want to consider this. Us, we have it as 6. That means the customer can only purchase 6 items at one time. So especially if you're doing a big, deep discount launch sale price for something, put a max order quantity so somebody doesn't buy a bunch of them and resell them. Handling time indicates the
Yep.
time and days which you receive an order, which you can ship the order. We have this blank,
Yeah. So
so
that,
yeah, you can ignore that,
yep,
I'd
it
say.
is. It is automatically filled by Amazon. Um, if it's FBM, they just naturally put it in with their own template, which can either be 3 or 5 days, depending on what they want to do. But generally, it's like 3 to 5 days is the. Oh, sorry, it's like 3 days for handling time. So if you're doing FBM, you do want to change that to proper handling time. And handling time is the amount of time that it takes you to pick, pack, and ship. Right. So grab it off the shelf, put it in a box, and ship it. Um, then of course there's a shipping times on top of that. So that is very important. And Amazon does actually have a whole bunch of new policies that they actually just came out with pretty much in the last roughly, oh, I'm going to say 60 days, but I might be off by another 30, um, of different type of templates that they actually came out with, and different type of shipping options. Yeah, so essentially what happens is that there is a honeymoon period on Amazon for a brief period of time. And when you have your offer start date and there's no sales, and maybe sometimes inventory comes in, but sometimes you're waiting on the graphic designer, there's all sorts of things that just kind of come into play. And if your product is technically retail or it's technically on Amazon and no sales are occurring, that's bad for you. And so, especially during launch, you just got to keep it. So, like I said, the offer start date is in the future, until everything is ready. The images, the description, the title, bullet points, and the FBA inventory is in. You come and you change that to tomorrow or the very next day once all that is in. So you can always adjust this date to within 24 hours of your current day, um, which is why we recommend that you do that. You set it sometime in the advance and you do it. The main reason for this is because you want to try and control that honeymoon period if you can.
All right, yeah, back to you, Ryan, and we can go into the keyword section. And yeah, we don't need to do a complete lesson on keywords SEO. That's for another video, of course, but just the basics of what this stuff is.
Yep. So as of right now, based on things that were here, so you have target audience, so men, women, unisex teen, unisex adult. If it's a dog product, you can put dogs, dog owners, etc. And then of course updating the backend search terms. This is 250 characters, and it's kind of everything in the kitchen sink, right? So you'll notice there's no commas. And it's an overlap of multiple different terms, all kind of there. There it should be, for the most part, no overlap or duplication on these.
Yeah, so in
Any,
short, it's your 250 characters, your most relevant keywords, all jumbled together in a blender. Doesn't matter the order here,
mhm,
anything. That's just kind of the way the Amazon search. This is kind of just the way their search the system works. So your top 250 characters, just put them in here. And how to do that is here are other videos on how to determine those words.
correct. Over here in images, you can actually upload your main image, and then starting from there over to the right, you'll have image 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And just to be clear, on Amazon's end, the main image is usually not image 1. So they usually call it the main image, and then you have image or slot 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Well, this one is a swatch, so that's a little bit different. So yeah, so you have these different sections that you can actually include, and then you can move image left, right, etc., and move them where you want them to in the sequence from here. Or there is another place where you can do it over on the catalog, over in SEO or in SEO in Seller Central. You can do upload images, and you can actually control this from here as well under Image Manager.
Yeah, that kind of uploads it to your Amazon Drive
Yep,
with
and then
everything.
you can control the same aspect from here, but we don't need to go into that.
Yep, and then
Anything
we
you
can
want to add
rearrange them with
here?
those arrows.
Yep, you can delete it, drag and drop something in here, whatever you need to do.
Cool.
All right, description. All right, so you actually have your product description. That's what this is, right? So the actual product description and then each one of your bullet points. Now, Amazon has tested this out. In some categories, you have still just the 5. and some you have a whole bunch more. I want to say this one has, is it 8, Riley? 9? Oh,
It's allowing 10.
wow, 10. It's allowing 10. That's cool. So then you can just remove the ones you don't want, etc. So you have some manipulation that you can do. Usually the more bullet points that they offer, the less characters that they will allow you to have for each bullet point. So just be aware of that. Sometimes it doesn't necessarily mean that you get 250 characters for every single one. You might actually have to dumb that down or make it less. And then CPSIA warning. Basically, like, is it a choking hazard, right? So no warning applicable. You can choose this if you want to. It's usually not a required attribute.
Yeah, just leave it blank.
Just leave it blank. That's usually what we do. Going
In the
back.
description box, you can write several paragraphs there. See our other videos on that, but you might as well leave it in there. This will be replaced by the A+ content after A+ content is live, but you can write several paragraphs in there about your product.
Correct. The description, even when A+ content is there, you can actually pull up any competitor's description, even your own, even though it's being overshadowed by A+ content. And so that's in the Ajax report, which really syncs well with Amazon's system. So we actually do think that there is some relevancy still to the product description as far as SEO. So just a heads up that it is a good idea to put a description in there. Even if you already have A+ content out the gate, you're going to have it at launch. Still put a product description in there. Cool. Moving on.
Yep.
All right. Compliance. This is where you can go down a rabbit hole if you're not careful. You do not necessarily need all of these things in here. If you're ever in doubt, you can always click on required or recommended on the attribute side. This is something fairly new that Amazon put in. And so if you're ever concerned, you can always click on required here. And you notice how a lot of that information doesn't even show up anymore. Still not under recommended, but it is under all attributes. That whole tab didn't even exist on those other ones. So compliance, whenever in doubt, narrow the field down to make sure you're at least getting the required information over here in attributes and everything. But otherwise, you can come through, and if you have this information and you need this information here, then you do need to put it. Does it have batteries, battery composition, watts per hour, all this stuff? This is all important stuff for you to put in there. Is there a safety data sheet that you have? And if so, what's the URL? Chemicals, pesticides, is it a pesticide, etc. This is a big deal, right? So if it is a pesticide, you have to put it in there. Most people in this course will probably not do a pesticide, so you don't need to fill this out. But yeah, this is just all compliance type information that you need to at least look at and make sure that you don't need to do anything here. Generally, you don't. And if you do, Amazon will probably flag it and say, hey, you need to supply this compliance information, then you do. But you should at least browse through and just make sure that there's not something that you might need from your manufacturer on this side of things, if you have anything in here that could flag that. Right?
Yep.
Anything else, Riley, on your end?
In short, skip this whole entire section, but that was a good explanation.
Browse it, look at it, make sure you don't need anything, but you can probably skip this section for the most part.
People can skip this. Mm-hmm. All right, moving on.
Vital info. Okay, so this is, sometimes vital info is here. I've actually also seen it at the beginning, so this can actually be arranged. This goes back to the category where sometimes it's not always in the same place. But this is going to be your product ID. This is going to be your UPC right now. This can change if you've actually used, if you have a UPC exemption, this will actually be filled with the UPC or G10 or whatever you use, whatever the code is that you use when you create the listing. This is where that is housed. Okay. This is going to be your title, and this is going to be the brand that you want to put in here. Make sure that when you put the brand in, this is very, very, very important, more so now than it ever has been on Amazon. It used to be that you could just put in whatever brand name you wanted, and then if you ended up getting brand registry, you could just go and change it. Amazon is getting more strict now, and they don't like doing that. So if you can, and you have a trademark pending for lifestyle designs in the all caps, that's what you want to put it as. You want to actually try and keep it as your trademark or your
Yeah.
brand name, specifically how it is going to be in the trademark process. If you messed up, there's still some ways to bypass this. It's very difficult. There are ways, but it's really up to Amazon if they actually decide to honor that or not. Usually you'll get the runaround for days, if not weeks, before they're willing to change that. So this is one of those situations where if you can get it right the first time, like the SKU, if you can get it right the first time, do it right the first time.
Yep.
Manufacturer, this is probably going to be you, especially if you are white labeling the product and you have your own brand on the product. If your brand name is on the product, you are the manufacturer, right? So they don't really care about your manufacturer in China, or in the US or wherever you're sourcing from. They don't care. They want to know, are you the manufacturer and the brand owner? That's essentially what this is lining up for. Usually you'll put that in there. So item type, this is something that you can technically edit here. So this is the subcategory or the sub niche. You can edit this in two different places. You can try to edit here if you want to, but there's actually a better place for you to edit it, in the kind of the seller support or the help tab. That's probably the better place to put it.
But when you create your product for the first time, right, it will have you select this basically category and subcategory. So
correct. Yep. Variation theme. So if this is part of a variation, then you can actually choose it, color and size. If there isn't, then there's nothing there. Size name, one pack, size map. So this is going to be large, medium, small, etc. Color and then color map. Okay. When in doubt, you can always review these, but editing variation themes are potentially dangerous, so you should edit with caution. That is their recommendation, and it is also ours. Be careful about this. If you really want to consistently edit,
when you first edit the product.
Correct. Now, a lot of this can be changed. This stuff is not as hard to change. The best way to change it though is over flat file upload. So if you do want to ever change some of this stuff over, your best option is to do it over flat file. So you will have to learn a little bit more about flat file uploads.
For variation theme, make sure if you're adding your first product and you plan to add other variations, make sure you set it up as a variation from the get-go in the correct variation theme, which can be just color or just size or color and size. So if it's going to be a color and size thing, so for us, we have black color, a white color, and a 1-pack and a 2-pack. That is color and size. So make sure from the get-go, when you add your first one, set it up like that. Otherwise, it's a hassle to change it into a variation setup.
That is correct.
That's the gist of it. All right,
that's
good.
Gist of it.
Speaking of variations tab.
Speaking of the variations tab, this is where it gets good. Now this one was not a parent ASIN that we stepped into, so this really isn't going to have very much filled out. It'll just say here, because this was what is called a child ASIN, or a sub SKU, if you will, if that term is more familiar, of multiple different variations. Right? So you have the black, the white, the 1-pack, 2-pack, etc. Those are different variations. And so when you're actually in the sub product backend page, like what this is, it is only going to reference that this product is a variation of this SKU, which this SKU is actually a ghost ASIN. So what that means is it's a parent ASIN that only exists in Amazon's internal system. It's not anything else. But over here in this one, you can actually click on variations and it will show exactly what Riley said. They chose the variation type, and it's color, SKU, product, etc. So it's got black and all that information filled out. So if you ever wanted to add additional ones, then
yeah. So if you have 2 colors and you're going to add your product in the beginning, this is how you will do it. And you'll need a UPC code / product ID for each of them, just for each of the variations. Do you need a UPC for the parent?
No,
because it's the variations.
It's called a shadow ASIN, which means that it only exists within Amazon's internal system to keep things organized. That's all that it is.
It will have an ASIN, yeah. Make sure you fill all this in. correctly by, yeah, by variation.
Yeah. Now, just so the audience knows who's watching this, we are using currently a closed ASIN. It's not on like for sale on Amazon right now at this minute, and so there are no opportunities for us to actually add additional variations here to show you. But
Mhm.
if they're wondering like, hey, how come we can't do that? That's why.
Yeah.
So, anyways, you can skip that unless you're building out the variations right there at the start. Then more details. This is another one that is also potentially a rabbit hole because there's a lot of information here. Now, this again goes back to the thing where if you really need to, you can always click on required and make sure that, hey, there's nothing needed there or recommended, nothing needed there. So this is fill it out if you can under the all attributes. Under more details, so product exemption reasons, if you have any of those, etc. Manufacturing part number, if you really need to do that. Model number, style, department, number of items. This one is actually usually pretty good if you have a multi-pack or you have multiple pieces in that pack that come as separate pieces. As an example, or like a cleaning product, right? And you have 25 tablets or something like that. That can be a spot that's actually inserted here. So anyways, this more details tab is one of the most hyper relevant to whatever subniche that you are in. And so you do have to be careful about that. The launch date obviously fills out, release date, which is it's a little bit different. So this is if you're setting up pre-orders, that's pretty much it. When it will be, like, you can technically set the launch date earlier and then set the release date later so that you can do like pre-orders. It has been our experience that sucks. It's not a great thing to do, especially if you cannot deliver those, because if you ever have to cancel any of those pre-orders, it counts against your account health and can get you shut down before you get started. So I personally don't recommend these unless you have a system built out that's really, really, really good. Country of origin is required in some sub niches. I don't believe it is in this one. Item dimensions. This one is a good one to fill out. I think you should fill out every single one of your products should have this. What is your normal item dimensions in inches? Then your packaging dimensions. The reason why this should be filled out is because this matters when you actually send in FBA inventory. They use this to measure how much you are sending in with a single shipment or single crate, etc. What is your package weight? Because they have parameters where it's like you can't have more than X amount of weight per crate, and you also can't have more than X amount of space and everything there. So they use this to kind of try and keep everyone within their own parameters. Then all these other things, which this product does not. And so if it doesn't, then you can actually at any time come in and mark as irrelevant, like has a color screen. No, like this is a sticky wallet. There's no color screen. So you can always mark it as irrelevant if you want, or just skip over it completely. Item type, so you can actually put in here stick on phone wallet if you want to, or adhesive wallet in this case. Model name, operating system, not applicable. And yeah, you just kind of come down and make sure that there's anything in here that is applicable. If it is a sport type product, you can actually put that in there.
Yeah, this is in the cell phones high level category, so that's why it's got
Yeah,
all these tech specs. This will be very different depending on the high level category.
yeah. And so usually you can type in something specific, or you can do some preset coding that Amazon has in there. Water resistance level, so on. So you can just, like I said, this is another one of those rabbit holes you can just get kind of lost in. Number of boxes that come with it, etc. So only fill this out as it is relevant to your product. When in doubt, what you can do is find a competitor listing that is very, very similar to yours, and you can run an Ajax report against it and see maybe what they're actually filling out in some of their more details or some of their vital info. So that way you don't necessarily have to do a whole bunch of that yourself. I think we'll probably do that in a different video, right, Riley?
Yep. Yeah, that'll be for another video.
Cool.
Um, Overall, in short, anything that's obviously important about your product, fill it out here in more details. But just to get started, you can go over to that uh, required button on the left, hit that, and just make sure all that stuff is filled in,
Mm-hmm.
which you will do if you were adding your product from the get-go. You'll need all that stuff. and then come into all the recommended stuff, and then anything else, any information that you have, you might as well put it in if you have that information. But if you
Um,
don't, it is fine. It's not going to be the reason that your product is successful.
yeah, just a slight thing here because I'm not seeing it here. But under the required and recommended, they're not putting the product description. And if you actually do create a listing on Amazon without a product description, it will get search suppressed. And then it says, hey, you got to put in a description. So you should probably have that already pre-made before you put it in. You don't necessarily have to have the bullet points right away, but you do have to have some sort of a description in there. Just a heads up.
Yep, yep, yep.
Because the reason I say that is just because it's not being pulled up as required or recommended, but it actually is. Like if it's going to suppress your listing, in my opinion, it should also be in this required. Anyways,
Yep.
that's it.
Which goes into Seller Central. Again, is always changing. It may look different to you. All of this stuff, it will look different. So this stuff is always changing and it's different for every category. I always tell my team if something is confusing, you can always ask Google slash ask ChatGPT for a quick answer about some of this stuff. If you're confused, there's probably some information on Google to figure out Seller Central stuff. Also in
Yep,
the Seller Central help section, you can just click on the need help button and it will explain more stuff about Seller Central as it's always changing. We don't know 100% everything about Seller Central. It's impossible to know um, everything, but there are those resources that you can check if you get stuck.
correct. Agreed.
All right, all right. That's it for this video. See you guys in the next one.